Good afternoon. Past Tuesday, we talked about the intellective nature of speech. That speech by itself does not have direct cause and effect, but the effect of speech is mediated through the interactions or responses of the listener or the hearer or the consumer of the speech or the content. And because of the interactive nature, it is sometimes unfair to put all the blame on the speaker, because a lot of what happens results from how the listener or the consumer of that speech or content responds to it. So in that sense, this concept of freedom of speech protects what you believe to be some of the worst forms of speech. For instance, a false statement like the Holocaust never happened, as in the case of Zundar. Also, the four-letter word directed against a legitimate government policy was also protected from prosecution, as in the case of Kuocw. Also, a statement that a very respected religious pastor, Christian pastor, had sex with his mom was also protected as part of freedom of speech. Because, as in the last case of the Christian pastor, and an incestuous parody of him, the reasoning was that the statement will not be taken as literally true. A reasonable person will never believe that the pastor actually had incest. Right? So, we are talking about when the speech, we are talking about situations where these forms of speech were not held responsible for some of the offensive feelings, some of the repulsions that people may feel toward the speech. Then we should ask, when, if you cannot punish, if you cannot shut up speech in that context, in that other context, then we should wonder, when can we? Right? If you cannot do it in those contexts, when can we do it? And Universal Declaration of Human Rights has a clue to that. Universal Declaration of Human Rights is sorry, I should have done this earlier. Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a document ratified by the General Assembly of the UN in 1948 in the wake of the World War II, the idea was that this concept of democracy, or the concept of progress, all these other beautiful concepts, or the concept of the people in communist countries, all these beautiful concepts really did not prevent a clear human civilizational tragedy like the Holocaust from happening. People thought that there has to be some other value, like a shining star at night, that will guide the politicians, countries, people to behave themselves. Hence came the concept of human rights. So, Universal Declaration of Human Rights it starts out with, of course, beautiful language, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Doesn't have the word sisterhood, but it reflects the time. This was back in 1948. It's only recent. I mean, at the time, it was only recent that women started voting, right? And there are other articles, like Article 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of. So this document reflects the ethical beliefs of many leaders of the world, especially the governments of the world. All major governments have signed on to UDHR, and it has since become the foundational document for much other international human rights law. So, like 1963, International Covenant of Civil Political Rights, which is the most important human rights treaty, is passed. That is also based upon UDHR. And if you look at Article 7, it says, all are equal before the law and are entitled to, without any discrimination, to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration. And this is what's important for the purpose of this class, against any incitement to such discrimination. Okay. And then International Covenant of Civil Political Rights says something more specific. Article 19 states, everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference, and everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, right? And Article 20 says, in paragraph 2, any advocacy of national, racial, or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence shall be prohibited by law. Okay? So, advocacy of hatred of other people shall be banned. That was the bottom line of the ethics as far as the governments in 1966 were concerned in terms of when speech can be regulated or punished. Now, we call this, in short, hate speech. Now, we'll talk about, now hate speech is not hateful speech. It's not insulting speech. It's not something you hate to see, but it is a speech designed to incite hate among other people against yet another group of people. So recently, South Korea had a very interesting controversy about the definition of a hate speech. In the context of Meghalaya, a website supposedly operated by all women anonymously, full of epithets, hateful words, advocacy of hate against men. And you read this article, right? You received it last night. You didn't have much time to read, but that's good because you didn't spend too much time reading it. So you had free time to do other things. So the question, after having read that article, we try to answer the following questions. Should Meghalaya be banned in South Korea? If not banned, in some way restricted. In terms of blocking or in terms of restricting freedom of speech, there are two ways of doing it. Punishing the speakers, criminally or civilly, right? Criminally meaning putting the person in jail, civilly meaning making the person pay money. All right, that's one way of restriction. The other way of restriction is by blocking the information itself or blocking the speech itself. That is a lesser form of restriction because it doesn't punish the person, but well, it is a lesser form of the restriction from the perspectives of the speaker, because if you just block it, if the government just blocks it, doesn't do anything to you, then you are fine, right? But from the perspectives of the people trying to access the information, blocking it is also a significant restriction on their right of information, right? So there are two different ways of restriction. So you can think of either restriction, either form of restriction, and as I said in the last class, we'll have a debate on this. So if there is anyone who wants to take side on this, you can raise your hand and I'll give you this mic and you can speak. Now, after you speak, there will be a roll call book that you can mark your name on. Okay, and there is a videotape of everything that's going on in class. So I remember to give credit for contributing to the class discussion. Okay, so anyone, should we restrict or ban megalia? Yes. You can come forward. By the way, if you'd like not to be videotaped, please raise your hand and we'll make sure that only the voice is captured but not your image. Okay? We'll hand over the mic, but we'll make sure that the camera doesn't turn to you. All right? Okay, go ahead.
I do not think regalia should be restricted or banned at all because it is the basic right of freedom.
Sorry, please state your name first. Yeah.
I'm Cheyenne Advice from the USA, and I don't think regalia should be banned from the internet or because it's a human right, freedom of speech, and it's also no standard or universal standard to decide what is hate speech and what other people find offensive or what other people count as threats or valid examples of hate speech. There's no universal standard across different cultures or even in Korea because the opinions are so diverse.
Okay. You can find your name and your mark. All right. Any other person? Okay. Come forward. That's the mic. Okay, so speak to that.
Hello, my name is Hannah, and I came from Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan is located in Central Asia, so I wanted to speak a little bit about the country because I want to say that in South Korea, for example, in the country they're developing technological and the scientific level, the feminist group and the feminist debates will never disappear because since the time of like the very since the very early times, women tried to fight for their rights. So they will fight because Korea is still developing and developing further and further. But I don't think regalia should be banned because, as Chaya said before, it is a freedom of speech, it's a freedom of movement, and it is accepted by UN UTHR. But also, it's a little bit contradicting what you said because it is always also the freedom of speech. It restricts the freedom and offends the freedom of other people because I read yesterday in the website that the Alliance member, they said that all women should do abortion if they are pregnant with men, and that men just do not have a right to exist in South Korea and all that stuff. So it represents the hate and the disrespect to its own country. So it will raise a very big conflict here. So I think instead of banning it, it would be very brave, choice to make some restrictions, to not offend other people's rights, and to not be so extreme as they are, because they know that they do something bad because they never show their faces and they always hide from people. It's only online and it's always anonymous. So I think it will be good for them to have restrictions, to raise their voice, to raise their opinions, but not without offending others.
Okay. We heard from two women. Okay, all right, all the way in the back. There was one man. Actually, I don't know. You should check it. Yeah.
Hi. You can call me Dom. Korean, but I was raised in Thailand. Okay, so where I stand is, I think banning would be a bit harsh because that would, you know, everyone has freedom to do what they do on the internet. So banning, I don't think I agree with that, but I think they should be a bit restricted. Some of their statements are kind of harsh, a little too over-feminist. Remember, the original idea of feminism was to bring equality and, you know, rights for women peacefully, for, you know, health cares and safe abortions and stuff like that. Not for like openly mocking men and saying like females are better than men, or, you know, because men believe female, you know, men are better than female, which is not. Okay? So I think at that point they're a little harsh, but banning would be, you know, taking away what's rightfully theirs, and they'll probably, you know, fight back harder after, you know, we ban their actual website. But if we actually tell them to say what to say and, you know, limit like their like harshness a bit, then I guess it's fine.
Okay. All right. There was one. Yes, the one with the cap. Yes. All right. That's.
I do agree with what Dong said. Like, banning wouldn't be a solution for that because offense would result in another offense. Banning, like, if you ban them, internet is wide, they can still operate in like different sites, like changing VPN differences. So, but we all share something called morality, human morality. We should be acting according to that, because making fun of someone or some other, like others' pain is not the solution. Like as he said, the original thought, like the original point is feminism. Feminism is just bringing equality with like their rights and stuff. So offending others and like making fun of others' pain wouldn't be a solution. So they should be educated. I would say educating them would be a solution for that, and then educating them in a way they would be acting according to humanity and morality that we share all. So educating them would be a solution, I guess. Thank you very much.
Okay. So most of you are saying that it should not be banned, but should be somehow, Dong said, restricted. Forgot your name, but wanted to be educated. I'll say this is a very naive view of Meghalaya. If you look at the logo here, it doesn't say we support you. It says we support your change. Who is think is you? Korean man. Okay? So they don't want to be educated. They want men to be educated. Okay? And you know what this means? Supposed to represent the size or Meghalayan's perception of the size of Korean men's penises. Okay? This is direct. This is a direct insult against body part of some groups of people. Now, if you are in the United States and if you take a mic and say something like some races have huge penises, you lose your job right away. Okay, but they are free to say these things. Are you sure you don't want this to be banned? Imagine backwards. Actually, there is another site populated mostly by anonymous men called ilbe, again based in Korea, which is filled with hatred. Well, there are many interesting contents as well, but also there are many words of hate against women and racial minorities and the disabled people, and also the victims of disasters like Sewol Ferry. You all read about it in the article. How about ilbe? Should ilbe be banned? Or should ilbe be restricted at least? Right? Now, if ilbe should be restricted, if you think we should take an ethical stance against ilbe, how about against Meghalaya that is promoting reverse hate against men? Now, what do we mean by taking a ethical stance? An employer who takes an ethical stance against ilbe, may refuse to hire someone who is participating in the website ilbe. Now, if that is okay, right? If employers are allowed to discriminate against or disfavor the participants in the misogynistic site ilbe, how about employers discriminating against or disfavoring women participating in the man-hating site Meghalaya, right? I all hear you that you don't want to ban internet, okay? I think I have an easy semester. But let's not talk about, putting people in jail or shutting down the website. But how about, taking a stance against these hateful words? Okay. Yes, you're first. Again, if you don't want to show your face, please let me know as you raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm also from the U.S. I think Meghalaya, in terms of its legality and its illegality, I think it's taking another level below what feminism actually is. Feminism is often mistranslated as man-hating, and I think that sites like Meghalaya and contents like Meghalaya has often kind of mixed up the actual meaning of feminism, and as well as ilbe, where they gave out free pizzas to everyone during the Sewol Ferry disaster and a fish cake. If you read that article, I think these kind of contents should definitely be restricted.
Actually, worse. They just didn't eat fish cake.
They wore the school uniform, and there was a guy in his 30s. He wore.
Oh, they call the dead bodies from the Sewol Ferry disaster fish cake.
Yeah. So these kind of contents are definitely should be restricted. It's ethically and morally wrong. And and employers. I do think that employers should have the right to information from others, but I do also believe in the right to be forgotten in a sense, because it's kind of connected to this, saying that criminals who had criminals of the past for very long ago, they have the right to be forgotten on the internet. They could erase their criminal background. I think that employers should have the right to disfavor members if based on their interests.
Okay. You talked about right to be forgotten, so I thought you were going to talk about employees' right to be forgotten about bad things that they did online, but your conclusion is different from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
All right.
contradicting, but
Okay.
fine, eventually.
All right. You had your hand up for a while, so come on up. Don't forget to make your mark on the roll call if you want credit.
Good afternoon. My name is Kuocw and I'm from India. Actually, I'm from Tibet. So, my perspective is that the Meghalaya or Ilbe or any sites should be restricted or they should be banned. It should just be let it go like natural flow of water. Just let it go and like because we cannot stop humans' perspective. Like it's all like our perspective and their perspective. So it's just a basic human right. So even like restricting is also like I think we are violating human right. So it should be, how to say, like free. But educating is like more important. From another side, I think educating is the best way to solve such kind of problem, social problems. So yeah, it should not be banned or it should not be restricted. Thank you.
It should be or should not be?
Should not be.
Should not be. Oh, I see. Should not be. Okay, all right. Should not be restricted. Should let the information flow naturally. Okay. I think you were second, the one with the mask. Yes. You want to come on up? You can wear the mask if that's the intent.
Hello, my name is Natalie, and I think the most important question that we have to pose here is like where we draw the line, because where we need to draw the line is where we differentiate freedom of speech and freedom of protecting people. Like I think the biggest difference between Meghalaya and Ilbe is that Ilbe actually posed a problem in society. Like it did affect, and it was on the news, it was everything, but Meghalaya was not less, but like we couldn't see it as much as Ilbe. It's not that we couldn't see it at all, but Ilbe was like, there was other news about like raping and things like that that was made through Ilbe. So the thing is that we cannot totally ban it because we still have the freedom of speech. However, we also have to protect the people from being discriminated, because discrimination is not only one way. It can be like girls can be discriminated, but boys can also be discriminated. So, yeah.
Okay. Your conclusion was more neutral, but the body of the argument was more partial to restricting just Ilbe but not Meghalaya. Let me just emphasize. Let me just amplify what she just said. She said, "What's written on Ilbe may actually materialize into harmful actions like rape or employment discrimination against women." Okay, but what's written on Meghalaya has a remote chance of actually turning into action, because physically weaker female are incapable of raping the more superior men. And in Korea especially, female are not just physically weaker, but socially much weaker than the man than in other quote-unquote advanced countries. World Economic Forum did a study of a gender disparity index. It's called the GDI. Okay, you can look it up. And surveyed 150 countries, and guess what the rank of South Korea was. A lot of credit if you get this one right. All right, I'll say 20. Higher, lower? No, okay. It's gender disparity index, but the worse it is, the country is ranked lower. The more discriminating the country is, the rank is lower. Okay, so 20. Higher or lower? 30. 100. It's out of 150 countries. 100. Lower. Out of 150 countries. And Korea is supposed to be number 10 economy in the whole world. And yet, it's ranked like 106th or something. South Koreans feel a lot of superiority towards their North brothers and sisters, but if North Korea was included in the survey, I don't know whether North Korea would have been ranked higher than South Korea. So in that sense, what's written in Ilbe has the danger of actually causing discrimination or violence against. Well, I'm not going to say it has the danger. I'm going to say it just has a more danger of materializing into actual harm than what's written in Meghalaya. You're next and you are shaking your hand. I'm sure you're shaking your head. Come on up. By the way, the most recent, let me just finish here. The most recent discovery showed that Meghalaya had lots of postings against poor men. So the writings were like, oh, you know, I'll never go out with a poor man. Poor men are incompetent. They would never pay pay for meals and drinks when on date. They're ashamed of the Korean race. Blah blah blah. That, of course, has earned another mark of infamy against the Meghalaya. Yes, go.
So I think you're really lucky that you said that in a Korean university and not an American one, because I think that more and more people are discrediting that idea that women can't commit violent crime, because they most certainly can. And as far as women not being able to rape men, they definitely are. It's just men usually don't talk about it. They tend to be more embarrassed. It's honestly, it's not funny. I mean, it's never funny. But if you look at Meghalaya and we turn it on its head, we imagine this being a group of men saying these things against women, we would be a lot more upset about it, right? Because we would just assume that they had more of a natural tendency to put their words into action. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like, the only real life experience that I had with this website was after, do you remember, I don't remember if it was a couple months ago, the woman was murdered in a nightclub bathroom. Was that Kuocw? Yeah, they had this big protest. There were a lot of Meghalaya users that had the signs saying really awful things, like just saying men are criminals and things like that, like they can't control themselves. And I remember I was there was one girl who wrote a sign on her notebook. She said, I don't believe that men are criminals, like I'm sorry for what these girls are saying. And the Meghalaya girls turned on her viciously. They were throwing things at her. I'm sure some of you have read about this, like in blogs. They were throwing things at her. They were calling her horrible names. And the only people who went up and protected her were counter-protesters, men from Kuocw.
they went over to her and one guy gave her his jacket and he turned her face away from all the girls that were saying stuff to her. So I don't really think that just because it's a society of women, we should treat it like it's not a threat, because it is. Even if you only believe in the violence that they can do against other women. So I think that's quite a conservative and traditional opinion.
Oh, I don't have a pen.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay. The one in the back row, the end of this block. Yes, come on up. I cannot take all questions, so sorry if I cannot give all of you a chance to speak. You just speak to it. There we go.
Hello, I'm Korean and I write my opinion because I can speak like original slang. So I think Ilve and malaria should be banned. Why I think like this? First, I think Meghallians are not feminists, just criminals, I think. Most of them hurt other people. For example, in Facebook page, Bamboo Forest, anonymous person said, Meghallians disclose my personal information because he is a gay. Frankly speaking, I don't like gay, but I respect his favor. And his neighbor hurt and damaged them, but they hurt him. So I just thought about one thing of their crime, but there are so many things they should be punished. Yeah. So I think Ilve and malaria should be banned. It is very bad.
Okay, all right. Okay, through the discussion, I think we are coming to an agreement that Ilve should at least be restricted or banned some way. And then we have difference in opinion on whether Meghallia should be banned or restricted, disfavored in the same way. Well, let's shift the gear and talk about yet another topic. Okay, some of you are wearing it right now. And if you go to Europe, many countries have banned one of these for outfit of Muslim women. Some other justification is that it is sign of male oppression on women, because only Muslim women are required under Muslim law or tradition to cover their bodies. Men are not. Well, men are supposed to also dress discreetly, but not as much as women are. And the recent controversy about this intensified as the ban on burqa, well, the ban on hijab, chador, niqab, burqa now began to be applied to swimming pools and seashores. At the beaches, burkini is a kind of a composite term. It's the swimsuit that Muslim women wear to go out to the beaches or swimming pool. If you take out the religious context, you will see a woman wearing, lash guard, but with a cape and headscarf, right? And some people in Europe believe that it is a sign of it is sign of religion that's oppressive against women, and to free women, and they, in the spirit of stopping and restricting hate speech, they are also banning these types of outfit, which they see as contradictory to the ethics reflected in Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that any incitement into discrimination should be prohibited. And this outfit, the European governments believe, some European governments believe, are confirming and restating the Islamic credo that is discriminatory against women. What do you think about this? Okay, anyone? Yes, you, come on up. Yeah.
Hi, very good evening. I am from Malaysia. So, based on the picture, you know that I'm wearing hijab. So, it's actually on how you are free to do your own decisions. I am Muslim and I choose to wear hijab, and few of my friends are Muslim and choose not to wear hijab. So it's like you should have the freedom to choose whatever you wear, even if hijab or bikini on the streets. It's depend on what women want to wear, not how men perspect women how they should wear. So like if she choose to wear hijab, then it is really absurd to ban it. But I also, as I oppose the country who force women who wear hijab to take off their hijabs, I also oppose on how few countries who force women to wear hijabs. Because I think that women have the right to wear whatever they want to wear. That's all, thank you.
Okay. All right. Women should have right. Women should have a right to wear whatever they want. In some countries, this sign is also banned because this is also seen as sign of racial oppression and racial violence. So people cannot walk around on the street wearing this sign. Okay. What's the difference between, would you agree to ban this sign? Okay, well, some of you are disagreeing, but just in interest of time, don't disagree with me. Okay, let's just assume that we should ban this one at least, okay, because it is a kind of it is used as a call for or signal for people who want to reconstruct a Nazi regime built on the concept of racial superiority of the Aryan race. And I think our ethical beliefs are at least not much in disagreement on this one. But my question, what I want to hear from you is, what will be the difference between this one and the costumes that are also seen as signs of gender oppression. I mean, yes, some women, some women want to wear hijabs, niqabs, but some women in Muslim countries are fighting for their right not to wear it because there are this male militia group, private thought police, who will come around and attack Muslim females who do not wear accordingly, right? Then what will be the difference between banning swastika and banning hijab? I'm not asking this question because they are equal. Of course not. I'm asking this question for you to think about why or where the difference is. Okay, now, both of you spoke. Yes, you want to come on up? The end row of this block. The end row, yes, you.
Hey everybody. First of all, I'm from Saudi Arabia and I'm Muslim. So I talk about hijab. And I think hijab and that side is so different. Because hijab, the woman she wear it by his own self. No one force it. And hijab just has that meaning of a war or something. And that side reminds us of the time and the history of the earth. So I think that sign should be banned, but not hijab. Maybe burqa because of security things or something, but hijab you can know she's a woman, she's not a man and covering her face, his face. So I think that's my opinion about it. I think that sign should be banned.
Okay.
But also it is, I know it's similar to a sign, but this one is for war, for so I feel it's just all the time.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Yes. You guys will not get a second chance, so don't waste your time.
Hello, my name is Patrick from Thailand, and I think the difference between these two is actually because this one, the things about wearing and some kind of religious stuff, is actually more about people opinion. Like each of us will have a different opinion towards this thing, and that's the choice people could make. Instead of forcing or banning it, we should like promote more right for people to be able to choose. But for the Nazi sign, we saw everyone just agreed to have the same opinion about the violation that's happened in the past. So that might be a big difference between those two, because the costume, some of us have a different views on it, but this Nazi sign, actually, I think we do all have like common sense about what it is. Thank you.
Okay. But I think that's a very naive view of how some feminists view many facets of Islamic tradition that discriminate against women. And many feminists do view some Islamic traditions very discriminatory and oppressive against women, and they see this they see how people wear things, what people wear, reinforcing that discriminatory attitude of the countries. All the way in the back, yes, the glasses.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Nijan. I'm from Azerbaijan. I'm also Muslim though. Actually, hijab and dance science swastika is completely different things, and I think it's really pointless to compare these things because swastika that things is actually resembling vandalism. I don't know, just like war, vandalism, just thing. I don't know what it's called. Just think something like because in Russia there is a group who is using the same sign, and when they are suing any Muslim people or someone is from Turkish country, they're always attacking that people because they are Muslim, they are from Turkish countries, and wearing hijab is completely something is personal because you are just wearing hijab and you are not doing or attacking any people. Even though I know so many people, like women who wear this hijab and attack anyone. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, good. All right. What he just said is very important. I mean, the swastika inspires something very different, something more inflammatory, something that, some feelings that are closer to action, that are closer to violence. He just said it is actually being used by groups, right, that are promoting, I believe, neo-Nazism. So I'm not going to take any more questions. All these questions about when we can regulate speech hinges upon what the speech is likely to cause. Okay? It's not the speech itself, or it's not the intention of the speaker, or at least that's not all that explains certain speech is regulated opposed to the other. But it is how the society receives the speech and how the society will respond to certain types of speech as opposed to the other. I'll put online another case, Rutherford. There, a traveler at an airport joked that he has a bomb in his luggage, in his carry-on luggage. And there is a law in the United States that punishes any false statement made about the possible presence of explosive on public transportation. But as I told you, law punishing false statements are being roundly criticized and struck down at human rights committees, at many other international human rights bodies. The law applied against the Zunder was struck down in Canadian Supreme Court. The law against a false statement in Korea was also struck down as unconstitutional for the reason that, statement cannot be punished or restricted just for being false. But the same false statement made about the presence of explosive on a public transportation can be soundly restricted and punished, and human rights bodies will not have any problem. The US Constitution, constitutions of Korea, constitutions of many countries will not have any problem with the punishing and restricting statement about the presence of explosive in public transportation. Why is that? What is the difference between one false statement as opposed to the other? What will happen if somebody falsely cries, there's a bomb on this plane? If I just say now, there's a time-ticking bomb in this lecture hall right now, what will happen? It will start commotion. You will start running, right? And you will not have time to think about what to do, but most people will respond in a very unprepared, dangerous manner, possibly stepping on one another. So it is that danger that becomes the basis for punishing and restricting the speech. It is in the same sense that we can think about hijab ban and also megalia. Yes, both types of speech, both ilbe and megali are insulting, are offensive, but the phrase "fuck the draft," that is offensive to a lot of people. I'm sure that offends a lot of veterans who served in the wars. It may offend some of you sitting right here, being uttered from a professor on the podium. But should that be the basis for restricting or regulating that speech, when people from different backgrounds may respond differently to those words? Or do we need something more? Do we need some more objective basis for regulating and restricting speech, like the possibility of resulting harm? What harm can result from wearing hijab? Right? Compare that to compared to the harm that may flow from wearing a t-shirt with a swastika. What is likely to, or in which situation physical harm is more likely to flow from? Same thing with megalia versus ilbe. Yes, both of them, if it causes any physical things, as you correctly said, yes, women can also commit rape against men. But how many rapes in the whole world actually are committed by women against men? I'm not saying that women are incapable of doing it. I'm saying we should take a more objective view, taking a step back and try to look at the forest. What speech is more likely to cause harm, right? So it is in that sense that information or regulation of information has been designed and structured. And we're going to talk more about this in the next couple of classes. Now, what What does this have anything to do with the information society? What does it have anything to do with the internet? Well, because internet is a medium where people's responses or the listener's role is much more important than in the more traditional media. Television. Now, important messages. Important messages will usually come through television or newspaper, certain forms of mass media, right? In television and newspaper, people reading it or people watching it had no role other than just receiving it. Yes, you can change channels, but how many channels do you have? You can change newspapers, but how many newspapers are there? But on the internet, when you turn on your computer, when you turn on your, mobile phone that's always on for you, I know. There are just multitude, infinite amount of possibility on what you can choose to look at. So whatever information powerful people, powerful companies, powerful governments put out there on the internet, if you don't move your finger and click on that link, all that information will be meaningless to you. Only when you choose to click, all the propaganda, all that advertisement from the governments and companies will have effect on you. Only if you respond. So I'll end with this Korean Constitutional Court case, which I think is the world's first and maybe the world's last case on the point that I'm trying to make. So as in many countries, election campaign is very restricted temporarily, time-wise in Korea. So only 2 weeks for legislative election, 3 weeks for presidential election. Okay? But Korean and the reason that it is restricted is because you don't want the campaign, you don't want campaign to be unfairly influenced by the more resourceful candidates that can buy a lot of advertisements on television and newspaper. But the court said, on internet, that kind of influence of unfairness cannot take place because no amount of money can buy netizens' attention. No matter how much information you put on, no matter how much propaganda advertisement you put on, it will be people who choose to look at your content and consume your data. You cannot force people to look at your content. So the court struck down the part of the law, the part of the election regulation that applies to the internet. So online people can do campaign all year round. Only offline they are limited to 2 weeks or 3 weeks. All right, that will be all for today. Again, watch out for the Blackboard. And I know that some of you are still waiting on the Zundel case. I'm trying to shorten it. I realized some of you complained that it's too long. So I'm going to put on a shortened version soon. All right, that's it. Thank you. See you next week.